The nation of Panama sits at about 8.5 degrees north and 80 degrees west and has 2,490 kilometers or 1,800 miles of coastline. 1,700 kilometers or 1,060 miles of that coastline borders the Pacific Ocean. The continental shelf of Panama is very indented and irregular due to the fact that over 1,000 of Panama's 1,600 islands are on the Pacific side. There is a wide shelf off of each island. The shelf here is much wider than on the Atlantic side. One major geographic feature of the Pacific coastline of Panama is the Azuero Peninsula. It was first settled about 10,000 years ago and is thought to be the oldest developed area of Panama, which is a major farming and agriculture hub, and it is located between the Gulf of Panama and Montijo. Another major feature of the Pacific coastline of Panama is the Gulf of Panama. The Gulf of Panama is 250 kilometers or 160 miles wide, has a maximum depth of 220 meters or 720 feet, and has an area of 2,400 square kilometers or 930 square miles. The Gulf of Panama also provides access to the Panama Canal from the Pacific side. This map here shows the routes of boating vessels going through the Panama Canal. As you can see, the Gulf of Panama is very busy due to its access to the Panama Canal. The Pearl Islands, located within the Gulf of Panama, consist of 250 small islands which are mostly uninhabited. They are formed by volcanic deposits, which you can see here in the layers of the rock of this island. In addition to being a popular destination for tourists, 3 seasons of the American TV show Survivor were filmed here in the Pearl Islands. Panama's Pacific coastline climate averages between 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit and 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. They average about 1,100 to 2,300 millimeters of rain a year, which is 3.6 to 7.5 feet. The dry season from January to April occurs near the Colombian border, while further north along the coastline, the rainy season lasts all year. There is extremely high humidity here, and the water temperature averages about 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The Pacific coast of Panama is primarily affected by the northeast trade winds, which move from 30 degrees north to 0 degrees, starting in the northeast and moving to the southwest. But it is also affected by the Pacific North equatorial countercurrent, which occurs from 3 to 10 degrees north. It is much stronger during the El Niño cycles and moves water against the westward direction of the wind. It moves the warmer western Pacific water over towards the cooler eastern Pacific water. This concept is based on Sverdrup's theory, which says that east-west transport is governed by the north-south change in wind stress. This region typically experiences waves between 0 and 1.5 meters or 0 to 5 feet. This area is also affected by semi-diurnal tides, which means there's 2 high tides and 2 low tides a day. The tide ranges about 15 feet or 4.5 meters, which makes it macro-tidal. This chart here shows the tides for Balboa Beach in Panama City, which is within the Gulf of Panama. The general longshore current direction flows northward along the coastline. I could not find any specific statistics for the longshore sediment transport rates close by to the shore, but there is a current further out from the shore called the Colombian Current, which flows northwards at a rate of 100 centimeters per second, or about 3.2 feet, and transports sediment at about 0.013 meters per second, which translates to about half an inch. Panama experiences frequent tropical cyclones, but has only been hit by one hurricane in recorded history, which was Hurricane Martha in 1969. This is believed to be an accurate count of hurricanes due to the fact that there are native settlements on islands off the coast that are estimated to be about 7,000 to 8,000 years old that are still standing. Therefore, there has not been a hurricane strong enough to destroy them. Rocky, sandy, and muddy shore is very typical of this area, as well as mangrove forests, coral reefs, and seagrass beds. The largest coral reef is in the Gulf of Shiqiri, the area around the Pearl Islands, which is protected by the government as a national marine park. There are 19 reefs in total within this park. Mangroves are very common in this area, mainly within the Gulf of Panama. Coral reefs are around the islands, but not closer to the mainland as there is too much sediment. Because of the seasonal rainfall, there is water deficit most of the year, making the river deposits weaker. The river basins are typically at a high relief and have steep slopes, which are prone to erosion due to the agriculture and lack of rainfall. High sedimentation and nutrient loading affect the mangrove forest and are the reason that the coral reefs are not up closer to the shoreline. The nation of Panama is divided by a mountain range down the middle. The rivers that fall on the south side of the mountain range flow into the Pacific Ocean. There are 24 rivers in total on this side. Some of the major ones include the Rio San Pablo and the Estero de Palo Blanco. One area that is very popular with tourists is Balboa Beach, which sits along Balboa Avenue in downtown Panama City. This area has very little sand as the city sits almost right on the water. This area is popular for bird watching, specifically for the macaws. It is recommended that you shouldn't swim in the water if you get sick easily, as the government is more concerned with the urban development than with protecting the natural resources. The water is full of pollutants that may or may not affect you depending on what you've been exposed to in the past. But the water that comes out of the faucets is drinkable in most of the country, as they do have efforts in place to clean the drinking water. My research article studied the effects of excess rainfall in Panama from 2010 to 2011. This excess rainfall caused freshening of the surface water, which led to intense erosion, particularly in the estuaries where the mangrove forests are. These pictures show how some of the mangroves were uprooted or destroyed due to erosion. These researchers believe that in the coming decades, Central America, specifically Panama, will have to deal with increasingly larger rainfall. This rainfall will continue to freshen the water sources, which will lead to more erosion and will eventually cause many of the native species to have to move from where they currently live. While this can't necessarily be prevented because we can't control the rainfall, now that they're aware of this increasing rainfall trend, they can begin to prepare for the consequences in the future.